Something else that I wanted to ask you about, Professor, and I don't know how much, if at all, you pay attention to the online leftist community, but one of the more fracturing and extremely divisive debates in recent memory occurred over this idea called force the vote, which sought to pressure progressive congresspeople into using their leverage to essentially threaten Speaker Pelosi's reelection, and as a result, potentially get some policy concessions, or at very least a floor vote on Medicare for all. If you paid attention at all to this debate, did you have an opinion on the strategy? And do you think that elected progressives, congresspeople like Alexandria Ocasio Cortez or Ro Khanna, who believe in policies like Medicare for all and a Green New Deal, have a responsibility to be fighting to push President Joe Biden and his administration even harder by using their leverage in instances like this, or to hold up key bills in order to get policy concessions?
Let's take a look at the real world, not a dream world, the world we live in. Suppose you manage to push Pelosi to say, let's have a vote on Medicare for all. And in the Senate, push Schumer to have it. We know exactly what's going to happen. 50 Republicans will vote against it. A large number of Democrats will vote against it. 2, certainly. Manchin and Sinema, probably plenty of others. So what we're saying is, let's do something to be defeated. Is that a strategy? I mean, it's nice to say, I want this, but we're not children who say, I want this piece of candy. I'm going to ask for it even if I'm going to be locked up in my room.
If I could explain the logic just a little bit further, I think the thinking was, during this global pandemic, when all the other countries around the world have offered this, essential human right to their citizens in the tax-paying industrial countries, the idea might have forced a discussion, almost a conversation to be had around our government's lack of insurance, our lack of, universal coverage, especially during this key moment. And while it may have ultimately died, some people thought that it was very essential to have that record of which senators and which congresspeople voted against it. That way we could proceed accordingly in re-election, primarying those elected officials, so we know where they stand with the insurance lobby or with the people that need insurance in a global pandemic. That was the thinking.
Yeah, that's fine. We can press Congress people to take a stand, but not by a tactic that says, let's try to lose. If you want to do it, what you go is do what Sunrise Movement did. Go after the Congress people, say, we want you to come out with a strong statement about what you think about Medicare for all, meaning what every other country has. Okay, that makes sense. And then you get them on record. They have to face their constituents. You begin to organize among their constituents, educate among them. But most of them, they may say we support it, but we don't know what that means. And when it comes to, in fact, we do know what it means. What it means is, yeah, I'd like to have it, but it's pie in the sky. Because if we get it in any form, we're going to lose our insurance policy. I won't be able to see my doctor. You get a ton of propaganda coming from the insurance, the financial institutions, and it kind of overwhelms the little bit of organizing that's done. There's plenty of experience with this. We're not living take Massachusetts, where I lived most of my life, most liberal state in the country. In fact, it initiated under Romney, actually, some limited form of care. Year after year, there was a referendum called in Massachusetts saying for universal health care. At the beginning, enormous support. Then the propaganda starts. Television slots about the Harry and Louise or whatever it was, talking about how we're going to not be able to see a doctor and they're taking our insurance away and on and on. And it's going to, in fact, you get exactly what you got with Sanders. As soon as he started talking about it, all the liberal media pounced on him. You had interviews with Sanders. They're interesting to look at. And a liberal reporter would say, how are you going to pay for it? What's it going to cost? And Sanders gave two answers. The first one was, yes, it's going to cost, whatever, X amount of money. And then he gave another answer, and it's going to save you twice as much. Then go to the newspapers. One part gets reported, the first part, not the second part. Okay, that's what we're going to face in the liberal press, let alone the right wing. Now, there's a way to deal with that, but that's by intensive organizing on the ground to get people to understand what's hitting them, what you're seeing and why. Get people to understand that when you think, and when they're telling you that you have employer-based insurance and the employer is paying $15,000, let people understand that that's a fraud. They're not paying it. They're taking it off your salary. Okay? People have to understand that. They have to understand the way the scam is working. You have to understand that, yes, if you have universal health care, you're going to have more taxes and far less expenses. Okay? It's tax day today. Here's some education that has to be done about taxes. One thing that has to be done is just fact. The United States has had a flat tax for decades. In fact, in recent years, with the changes in the tax law, it's not even flat anymore, it's regressive. The propaganda says we have a progressive income tax. First of all, it's not that progressive, but secondly, it's overwhelmed by the regressive taxes. Sales tax, Social Security tax, payroll tax, they're all deeply regressive. Put them all together, it's basically a flat tax. Now, in recent years, for the first time in a century, literally, billionaires are paying a lower tax rate than working people. So but there's something deeper about taxes that requires some education. Let's just imagine two extremes: pure totalitarian society, functioning democratic society, and take a look at how people would look at taxes. In a totalitarian society, April 15th would be a day of mourning. Now, those gangsters up there are stealing our money from us. In a democratic society, it would be a day of celebration. We've gotten together, and we've decided on our priorities. We've decided on how to work them out. Today's the day when we do it. Let's dance around the maypole. Now, where are we in that spectrum? Well, that tells you something about functioning democracy. And that has to be shifted. People have to understand that working together for the common good is a desideratum. It's the kind of thing we want. It's not some guy up there stealing from us. To the extent that it is, we change it. Okay? Yes, it is to an extent. So let's change it, but not by saying, let's hand everything over to private power, which is unaccountable, and let them do what they want. That's the worst way to do it. So all this requires on the ground education and organizing to withstand the avalanche of propaganda that's going to come if you just say, let's have universal health care. You can anticipate it. It happens all the time. We know what it'll be. Let's face reality. So yes, it's a good idea, but you have to find the kinds of tactical methods that will, in fact, achieve the goal, not just dig the problem in deeper.